Hello and welcome, lovely lads. Hope you're all having a wonderful weekend. Welcome to this second tutorial of Python Basics, in which I will be talking about Python functions and loops. If you haven't followed my earlier video in which we talked about the variables and their types, also if-else statements, how they work, and we concluded it with also the operators and the standard input from the user, you can follow this video link and watch it as a recap. In today's lesson, we will be looking for entirely on the functions and the loops. Functions are very important topic to cover when you're learning the Python journey. And the thing is that if you want to write a modular and reusable code, it is very important to know. So let's jump in and see how you can create the Python function and call it. So in order to create a Python function, you need to use the keyword called def. And def would be the keyword that you would be using in order to define the function. Later on, you have to provide certain name to that function. That could be anything. Just remember that you cannot put in the special characters in the name. So let's say we say my function for the sake of simplicity, and we pass in some value here, let's say the name of the person, and we return that value. No, instead of returning, we just print out the value itself, or we can simply put in the f string here. Just leave this part right now. I will be covering it later in our course as well. So name is equals to the, here you will put the curly braces and close it in. So this function has just the functionality of printing whatever the name we are going to pass to the function. So if we hit save, this will compile this code. Now the function is generated, and if you want to call the function, you just have to type in the name of the function and give it a value. Let's say my value, my name, that is Kalim, and this will print out name is equals to Karim. So this is how you can create a Python function. So another thing to remember is that you can pass in multiple arguments as well to the function. There are two types of arguments that you would be dealing with when you are doing your code for a bigger application. The first one is positional argument, and the second one is keyword argument. So the positional argument, what I mean to say is, let's define some function that is adding two values, or let's define a function that is printing out the name of a person and returning the age of the person. So let's say def person, okay, and we pass in the value first, that would be the name, and the second value would be the age, and this should print out the value name and should return the age value here. You can return the values as well in a function after performing some logic. So now let's say that we define this function and we pass in some values, person, and first pass the name. Let's recall our previous character that we defined in the video, Bubla, and then we pass in the age of Bubla, that would be 40. Let's make him a bit older. So now if we say do that, first it's going to print the name and then it will return the age. The age we can also store in for the later use. Let's say result is equals to this, and now we see that the Bubla, the name was printed out, but the age was returned to us. And if we see what is inside the age, we see that we also have the age returned back. But so our logic in this function is that we print out the name but return the age. Instead, what, let's say a user who's using this function doesn't know the order of the arguments. So he does something like pass in the age before and then he passes in the name. So by the function definition, this should be incorrect, but the Python won't tell you that. And what it will do is like print the age instead and return you the name of the person. So if you do that, you see that the 40 was printed out as a name which was not intended, and the result was, the instead of the age, it was returned as Bubla. So this concludes us, allows us to know the position of the arguments matters in this case. If you are just passing the arguments simply like that, you have to know the order of the definition of variables in function. But if you don't know that, you can also pass in as a keyword argument. So you define age is going to be the 40, the name is going to be the Bubla, and this will give you the name first and the age later. So that's how you can define the positional and uh, keyword arguments. Okay, so another thing to remember is that you can pass any type of variable inside your function. You can pass in the list variable, you can pass in my dictionary, as well as you can pass also the my function. Like you can define any logic that you want, and then you can pass it as an argument to another function. So let's see, we create some function that handles all these cases. We call this function def handle anything. Okay, very readable name of the function. And then you pass in a variable. Okay, we are defining it as a variable. You can call it anything, but just for the sake of simplicity. Now let's see, check that if we passed my list, it should act in a different way. If we pass in dictionary, it should return something else. If you pass in function, it should do something else. So let's say we have first if is instance, and then you pass in the value. First, the value that is my list, and then you pass in the type that this should be the list variable. If the my list is the instance of the list, then it should just print out all the values inside this list. So what we want to do is for I in variable, no, sorry, here I should be putting in variable instead of the my list. So variable print out I. Then if elif, as we studied in the earlier video, elif condition allows you to check the second condition if the first one fails. So is instance, and you say the my variable, still the variable, is of dictionary type, then what it needs to do is just print out the name of that person, variable, and then you pass in the argument as a key as an argument, sorry, name, and then you say else. Now we know that the remaining option only we have is the function that we will try to pass in later on. And if you have a function here, what you need to do is just define some variable a is equals to 10, and then call the function, call the variable like this. So I will explain this code once again so you can wrap your heads around it. And you don't need to return anything, so just print out this value as well, variable. Now here we need to store the value result, and here we need to pass in a, because a is 10 and then a is going towards that function right here. So you will basically multiply 10 with the 10, so it will be 100 returning us. And here you can print out this result, not the string but the variable. So that's our very complicated function. So let me explain you the logic. So first we can pass in any variable type. I would suggest passing in my list, or dictionary, or a function, because we haven't covered all the other types that could be integer, boolean, or something else. Because if you pass in boolean, this would raise an error. So now let's see if we call this function handle anything with my list, and we should see that each of the value within our list is printed out. So here we go. So the list is printed out. The first condition was met, so it was okay. Now if we do pass our dictionary instead, handle anything, and then we say my dict, and this should print out the name that we defined earlier as Bubla. Oh, right here. Okay, so this should be printing out the Bubla right now. So okay, one last thing to remember is that there is also a way to handle the arbitrary number of variables as well. Let's say we have some function that is defined like loop over. Okay, so the functionality of this function is to loop over all the variables and print out the results. Okay, loop over, and we pass in some variable that is called variable here, and we have to iterate. Well, one thing that I need to exploit it for you, that here we need to put in asterisk. This is the way you can pass in arbitrary number of positional arguments in this way. So for variable, where in variable, and you print out the result here, where. And now if you call this function loop over, you can pass in any number of arguments that you would want. For example, you can pass 1, 2, and 3, and this will print out 1, 2, 3. But if you want to call more values here instead of the 3, you can pass in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as well, and this will print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is how you can pass in multiple values, and the function can handle easily as you would want it to. You can pass in the arbitrary number of elements as the keyword argument as well. So instead, let's say you want to pass in 1 equals to 1, 2 equals to 2, and 3 equals to 3. Now, instead, like earlier, as we saw, we had passed only one asterisk. Instead, now you will have to pass in two asterisk to receive the multiple keyword arguments, and then you can handle them as you want. For example, if you just print in the type of this variable, we will see that this would become a dictionary. So you can just simply use the dictionary logic that you would like to see. For example, let's say we want to iterate over all the keys within this dictionary. For key in variable dot keys, this will return us all the keys for our dictionary, and we can just print out the key. And now we would see instead that it prints out this value 1, 2, or 3 in the alphabetic order. So class was dictionary, and it prints out 1, 2, 3. Instead, if you print out the values here, you would see it print out 1, 2, 3. So that's it for the Python functions. I hope that was really helpful to you. I would really recommend you to practice all these concepts in order to remember them, because programming is all about practice, practice, practice. You know, the wise man rightly said that if you don't practice, you forget. So I would advise you to follow along with me, and if you find any problem or trouble, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best in this journey. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe and follow for more. Thank you.